Welcome guys to this new video. Today I'm going to cover the cycle of despair. Probably something which you have experienced if you have been doing self-development for a bit of time, or if you have been doing online business specifically for a bit of time. You definitely have experience with this. So how it works is things basically go well and everything seems like it's going according to your plan. Everything seems like it's going in an upward direction. What happens then is you hit a peak. So you feel like you sort of are on top of the world, everything is going amazing, nothing can go wrong. At that time you exactly think that things start to go bad. And then it's no longer an upward trend, but it's a downward trend. And at the end you drop down to such a low that you think to yourself, now things can only get better, and this cycle repeats itself over and over again. Sounds familiar? Probably in any area of your life, whether it's business, fitness, relationships, this probably occurs. Now, what causes this? Because I'm very interested in understanding how this stuff works, how it starts. So many think the root of this is identity standards. So you get what you are willing to tolerate, for example. But this is actually not the root. Let me explain why. Let's take something like money. I learned from my mentors that the reason this cycle happens is because of your identity and because of your standards. And the reason I disagree with this is because, let's say that you, for example, are not making any money. How could you not tolerate that? What happens if you don't make any money for 1 month? Like, let's say, for example, that your standard, and I think I put an example here below, but let's say that one of your standards is that you at least are going to make $1 in a single month. And anything but that you will not tolerate. What happens if you do not make this money? That means your standards have lowered. And then what? Then you're kind of stuck because you were not able to meet up to your standards, so to say. But this is not something which is in your control. So I really disagree with this. Because then your standards have lowered and you're fucked. Because the evidence is directly in front of you. Like, how can you argue against seeing $0 in your bank account? It's extremely difficult to convince yourself that your standard is to make $10,000 a month if you see $0 that you made this month. Like, how can you tolerate a standard which you cannot see yet? It's just very strange and, in my opinion, almost impossible. So the root is something else. And by the way, this actually happened to me. I was making 9K a month. Then I made less money because I lost a few clients, which undoubtedly had to happen at some point. And soon I was at 3K a month because I lost some of my biggest clients. So what happens is, like, how was I supposed to have standards when 3K a month is staring me in the face? Like, I was at 9K a month. You could say technically my standard is to make 9K a month. And because of this, because of something that happened, I lost a few big clients and I was at 3K a month. And now what happens next is your standards, if you consider this model true, what happens is your standards drop to 3K a month. And this is not something within your control, because I could definitely not control the exact clients I was losing. I could not influence their decision. What I could control is my reaction, which we're going to talk about in a second. But how was I supposed to have standards when 3K a month is staring me in the face? It's like, you can't argue with your mind against hard, factual, visible, sensible evidence. Okay? So this is when I discovered the answer and the real reason this happens. The reason you go from high to low, from low to high, the reason your standards can lower at any time, literally. Like right now, if your standard is making 10K a month, what happens if your business fails? Then your standard has lowered and you're like pretty much fucked. And the reason you're stuck in this cycle is because of one thing and one thing only, and it's because of your attention. Let me really briefly explain why. What happens is when things go well, your attention, or specifically your thoughts, are directed towards things going well. So you think, hey, things are going well, so they're probably going to go more well. And kind of on a streak is what you start to think to yourself. And as we continue on this cycle to the right, what happens next is your attention is now here. It's focused on, oh, perhaps something has gone wrong and some tiny thing has gone wrong and you start worrying. So maybe along the journey, things were going really well, but then suddenly one client left. So for example, one client, and I hope you can read this, one client left. Now your attention is now focused on the client that left. So already you're kind of off this streak of upward trend and you're already going a bit down. What also might happen is you think to yourself, now things are going well, there must be a peak soon. You should say there must be a peak soon. So you think this cannot go on forever. Or even another example, which is really fascinating to understand, or you think to yourself, glad I'm not where I was down there. Even though this might seem like a positive statement, this actually has the same effect as this statement or this statement, because your attention is focused on being down there. You're focused on glad I'm not down there. So in your thoughts, you're focused on down there, being down there. It doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative or neutral. It's like where your attention is focused, that is what's going to create. So whether you think something's going wrong, the cycle is going to end, or whether you think there must be a peak soon, or whether you think glad I'm not where I was down there, all of these things are going to actually create the opposite effect of what you want, and these are going to send you downwards. What happens then is you actually hit this peak, and your worries about being on the way down are becoming true, and you hit this peak. Next, things start going bad. You start to notice that things are not going as well as they were. Things are going worse and worse and worse. And your attention, once again, is focused on the fact that things are going worse and worse and worse. It's a fact that things are worse and worse and worse, but your attention is focused on things going worse and worse and worse. So it doesn't matter what is true, it matters where you put your attention. Because what happens afterwards is you hit a point where things go so bad and things are so low that you think to yourself, now things can only get better. This is kind of like rock bottom which I've hit. Or you start to imagine what good looks like again since you hit rock bottom. Like, imagine to yourself, if there's something you worry about and that thing actually happened, then the worry disappears. For example, if you worry about, for example, losing 5 grand and you actually lose 5 grand, then the worry is no longer there because it actually happened. So then you start to imagine again what it would look like to, for example, make 10 grand. You start to put your attention towards 10 grand. And that's where you're actually going to create positive results. So this cycle is not at all about identity or standards. There's an argument to be made about why it is. But in my opinion, the thing that's underneath the standards, that's underneath the identity, that's underneath the character is the attention. Because wherever you put your attention in the cycle is almost guaranteed to predict the results that are going to come. So the key to actually breaking out of this, by the way, if you waited for me to kind of give an answer to this, is by focusing your attention at all times on the things that you do want. So if you're able to focus your attention at all times on things going well, you're going to keep creating things that go more well. So if I would visualize this really briefly before I wrap it up, you basically start at a middle point. Things go well, things go not well, things go well. It's kind of this cycle of despair. And what happens is this is called the peak, and let's call this the trough. Now, the key to this is at any time, and it doesn't matter whether you're like right now here, whether you're right now here, whether you're right now here, or whether you're right now here, the key is to focus your attention on an upward direction. So don't focus your attention on the peak. Don't focus your attention on the trough. Don't focus your attention on going down. Focus your attention on going up. Focus your attention on how things are going better every day. Focus on the wins you've had, on the successes you've had. Imagine what improvement looks like. Just keep that in your mind. Only keep that in your mind. And then with time, instead of this, the cycle is going to look something like this. Maybe you have a slight regression, but then your attention focuses back. Maybe you have a slight regression, but the attention focuses back. And this is how you're able to get out of this cycle and break through these quote-unquote standards. Because something might happen and your standards get completely crushed, and then you're pretty much back to zero. And it's extremely difficult to get out of there. I'm speaking from experience. So I hope this principle sort of made sense. Want some more help with this? You can check out the link in the description for some additional stuff. With that said, hope you enjoyed the video. Looking forward to seeing you in the next one.